Day 1. Pilot.
This sound recording is intended for my own personal edification. I spoke earlier on a first day record of a calendar Saturday night viewing of a motion picture, a movie. The name of it escapes me right at the moment, but it was about the systematic trauma of a young high school woman, age 17, surrendering of her virginity and so forth, and then the issue of rape. So, trauma-laden is the examination of my life from childhood upward. To isolate the trauma and to cause it to lose its hold on me as much as is humanly possible. That when I was 14 and a half, even you have to have a certain high school mentality to understand this. Much younger than the 17-year-old woman mentioned by 2.5 years. An attack upon my own virginity and maleness by a much older male. This is a specific I'm grasping for words, study of my life with regards to rape trauma and what it meant. Upon the night that I was traumatized, I blacked out and ceased forever being the me that I had been up to that point. Prior to that, pardon me, there were blows to my ego state, attempts to split me, my loyalties between Jim and Nora, by the name James and Craig. James being definitively the name of my father passed on to me along the Christensen line. And Craig, even though Christensen being definitively loyal, a loyalty to the Thompson portion of my branch, which would include my mother Nora and her two parents, Forrest and Glee, were rapidly coming up on the time of my grandmother's anniversary decease, which I believe is the 26th of this month. I have to stop and think about it. It's 3 days from now, so that would make sense, which she passed away at Mercy Hospital. Interestingly enough to me, this particular trauma time frame freezes my life from a period of time which would be commensurate to June 9th, which was a Friday night in 1967, a date not picked out of the blue but scientifically arranged or arrived at. I'll mention a few other points. There appears to be an overlapping then between Friday night, my assault, June 9th, 1967, over a period of 4 years, a fragmentation, if I can use that term, beginning to elucidate a split between Thompson and Christensen. Now, I could go into this in much, much more detail, but during those following 4 years, and this benchmarked on Thursday afternoon, May the 27th, 1971, which, when I picked up my yearbook, and if I'd had a lisp before that point, I do believe that up until that point, remedy would have been much easier. Assistance to the post-trauma, to calm down the system and manage repairs would have been much easier up until the point where I opened up my book and discovered 2 boys. The first boy is me, and it's interesting because my life is recorded on the pages of that yearbook, which I may only have on travel drive. I think I may have scanned it or taken photographs of it, but it's about Craig Christensen. Now I look back on it, and it's Thompson, grandson. But, pardon me, what's interesting about this split that the yearbook triggers is the portrait of myself at 17 years of age. Shows a young man with a snot catcher, we would have called it. A blonde mustache has been darkened in by mascara and mustache wax, sideburns the same. Luxurious, dark, black hair. Very youthful. But it splits me at that point because it nullifies me as a person. My identity, which had been carefully groomed under my grandparents' watchful eye, and forever creates what seems to be a curious alteration of consciousness, dissociative period earmarking the conflict between James Christensen, who I would later learn would be a straw man, and myself. So it's a blow equal to the initial rape trauma, which was like an axe or a wedge placed between a log and a sledgehammer driving this wedge down through the tender wooden fibers of my psyche. So this is what is another a black eye, blackout period. It's interesting that the alteration continues for some time, approximately, I would gauge 5 more years, in which my splintered identity of Craig Christensen continues on until phased out. And the altar takes complete possession of my life, really from the pages of that yearbook on that date, so that we see that over a 4-year period, hovering between recovery and denigration, it goes to denigration. Part 1.